January is usually a month where all of the terrible movies get released because a lot of studios don't have faith in them. So they put them in the month of January where they know people won't pay attention to them and won't talk about them. But I will say, I do think that 2026 had a pretty solid January. And I think there are a few movies here that I actually quite enjoyed. So today, we're going to go ahead and rank the 5 films that I saw in the month of January. Now, all the films that are in this picture behind me are not movies that I saw. There's only 5 from this list, so I just wanted to preface it with that before I start. So let's get on with the ranking. Coming in dead last, and the only movie from January that I absolutely despised, Return to Silent Hill. I said in my review, which you can go back and watch, that this is a film I had virtually no expectations for because I am not a fan of the video games. I've never played any of the video games. So I went into this hopefully to watch a good film that might get me intrigued enough to go play the video games. And what we got was a steaming pile of shit that was the most boring movie I've seen this year. There is still not a film that I think is more boring than Return to Silent Hill. The pacing in this film is unbearable. The acting is terrible. The effects are terrible. There's nothing to me about this film that I look back on and think, wow, that was good there, and that might warrant me rewatching this in the future. I will never watch this film again, and I would not recommend you to. Coming in at number 4, and a very significant leap from my number 5, is going to be Primate. This was a film that I had virtually no expectations that it was going to be good whatsoever, and I actually had a pretty good time with this film. It's not going to win any awards. It's not going to be a movie that's revered and looked upon as, one of the greatest movies of this year. But I do think it is a movie that if you just go into it and shut off your brain, you will have a lot of fun with it. I think there's a lot of really cool kills. I think they use the atmosphere of being isolated in this house in the middle of Hawaii, pretty much out in the middle of nowhere, really, really well. I think the practical effects of having an actor actually play as Ben in this movie made it feel more realistic. It made it have a better sense of realism. When doing this movie, I don't think that the acting job that the characters in this movie do is really all that good. But if you're looking for just a goofy style movie that has some really gnarly kills, and like I said, a movie that you could just turn your brain off and have some fun with it, I think you'll enjoy Primate. Like I said, practical effects are great, kills are good, atmosphere's creepy. But, that's kind of where the good ends for me, and that's why it's at my number 4. But overall, I had a fun time with Primate. Coming in at number 3 is going to be Mercy, starring Chris Pratt and Rebecca Ferguson. This was actually another film, one that I saw the trailer for and thought, oh, geez, this is a typical January release. This is going to be shitbox and not be good. And I actually had a lot of fun with this film. I think that they blend a lot of elements really well together. I think that this feels like a searching style film, with AI and a murder mystery-ish, kind of. You have to kind of figure out what's really going on. And I think I had a lot of fun with it. I thought Chris Pratt did a good job. I think Rebecca Ferguson plays an AI pretty flawlessly. I thought she was really good as that. And I thought that the central mystery was actually really intriguing, and I liked the way that things get revealed to you in the film. Now, I do think once you get the reveal and you fully understand what's going on here, I do think that it's a little bit predictable and not really something that blows you away. But I thought it was good enough. I thought this was a servable film. I thought I had a much better time in than I was expecting, and maybe that's why I feel better in general about a lot of these January movies for this year. Is like a lot of them I really had no expectations on, and ended up over delivering for me. And I think Mercy is one of them. I've seen people say that this is the worst movie of the year. And I couldn't disagree more. I think there's a lot of fun to be had here. I don't think, again, it's going to be one that's very memorable or one that we look back on and say, hey, that was a great movie. But I think overall, if you like these style types of movies, kind of the Screen Life type movies and you like a good mystery, I think Mercy is a good enough time. Now, before we get into my top two, I have to say that this top two was extremely hard to rank. And, if you ask me on a different day, my ranking might be swapped on them. I think these are both really, really good movies, and two movies that I think that if they're not in my top 10 by the end of the year, I think that I'll be very surprised. Coming in at number two is going to be Sam Raimi's newest film, Send Help. And man, I had a blast with this film. Again, I always want to talk about expectations and what mine were going into a film because I obviously think that plays a huge part in any type of movie watching experience. But my expectations for this film were high, but they weren't high from what I saw. I don't think the trailers really did a good job at intriguing me all that much. But as soon as I heard that this was Sam Raimi coming back to this genre, yes, I would classify this as a horror film, even though I think it's more suspenseful thriller than horror. Still the style of movie that I love to see Sam Raimi in. And man, this was such a good time at the movies. To me, Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien have absolutely fantastic chemistry. And I believe that this is Rachel McAdams' best performance of her career. And the reason I think it works so well is I think that both of these characters start out at a certain place in their lives and in the way they act. And by the end, you do a complete 180, and they both end up on the opposite ends of the spectrum, completely switching the dynamic from where they were at the beginning of the film. And what that does is it allows both lead characters to have such a range of acting that they have to perform in this film. And I thought that really stood out from Rachel McAdams' performance because where she ends up by the end of this film had me so enthralled and so intrigued, and I loved everything that she did in this movie. The movie is also much funnier than I expected. It definitely has that Sam Raimi dark comedy in it that we all know and love, and I felt like that really did a good job balancing with the tension, so then that way when you get these really tense moments, you kind of can take a step back and have a laugh and have a moment of levity before we get back into this crazy situation that these two characters find themselves in. Then it also does a really good job at being super unsettling, building the tension masterfully, just like we know Sam Raimi can do. So I really, really love this film. Like I said, if you ask me on a different day, this might be my number one film from January. It was that good. I had such a great time with it. I can't wait to see it again. I'm gonna catch it as soon as it comes out on digital, and give it a watch because it's just such a fun movie. I think too it's a movie that will play well in the theaters and then also play well when you watch it home, which I think is just as important because I think a movie's rewatch value, contributes to its impact and how long and how it's looked upon at the end of the day. And I think Send Help is going to be a film that I'm going to look back on and say that was a great original film from a very legendary director. But as of right now, my favorite film from the month of January is going to be 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. I am someone who I was a fan of 28 Years Later. I know a lot of people like to rag on that film now. I really enjoyed it. But I think that The Bone Temple is such a dramatic improvement over 28 Years Later that this is easily, for me, the second best movie in this franchise, only behind the original masterpiece that we got before. This movie is much more focused than 28 Years Later. Even though I liked that film, I will admit that does a lot. The plot is all over the place in that movie. And this one is so toned down and so much more consistently written, but it doesn't lose any of the intensity that you got in 28 Years Later. And I think the reason that it works in that way is because you have two storylines with Dr. Kelson trying to cure Samson and then the story of the Jimmies that are such polar opposites and they tell such good stories on their own rights that you just have this perfect balance throughout the entire film. I also think that Ralph Fiennes gives one of his best performances as Dr. Kelson in this movie, which I'm really not surprised by because I thought he was fantastic for the short amount of screen time that he had in 28 Years Later. And then on the opposite side, Jack O'Connell continues to prove that he is one of the best actors working today and is great as these villains in these horror films, just like he was in Sinners. I also love the commentary in this film about how, even in a world like this, where you're in an apocalyptic type setting with zombies all over the place, that human beings are the ones that can still scare you and still terrify you. A lot of the movie violence in this is done by the Jimmies, it's not done by the zombies, and I think that sends such a powerful message when you watch the film. Nia DaCosta deserves all the credit in the world for this, because I think she took Alex Garland's script and made it this very tight, very consistent, very fantastic film. And I just think she made it her own. I think she's gotten a lot of flack, for some of the movies that she's directed over the last couple of years. But this one, to me, is the best film that she's done. And I think she deserves all the credit in the world for this movie. And also, too, this movie has some of the best needle drops that I have seen in a film. There's two of them, and both of them I think are extremely fantastic. And then also, too, where this film leaves off has me so excited if they decide to do a third installment. I really hope that they don't end up canceling that, because I think we can get a truly great movie with part 3 as well. And, it'll be disappointing. I know it didn't make a lot of money, but Sony, just for the sake of it, we have been away from this franchise for a really long time. The first one, 28 years later, made a good amount of money, but it did put, a bad taste in people's mouth, but I think they really rebounded here. So I really hope that we can get that third movie, because I would love for nothing more than to finish this story. And yeah, where they leave it off, please, I hope we can get this movie. But to me, Bone Temple, easily the best movie that I saw in the month of January. So it comes in at number 1. All right, guys, why don't you go ahead and comment below. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what your movie rankings were for the month of January. Like I said, I think it was a pretty solid month. I mean, there was a shit box and some okay movies. But I thought we got 2 really solid films. And I think that's more than what we normally get in the month of January. So I'm pretty happy with what we got that month. And it's definitely not nearly as bad as what we've got in previous years. Sorry I'm making this video so late. I've been extremely busy. I know it's, halfway through February. But I've been very busy. Got sick in that time, so it's been hard to kind of get the time to make this video. But yeah, so comment below. Let me know your ranking. Let me know some of the movies that you saw in the month of January, and where you're at with it. But besides that, everyone have a great night.